Welcome. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for agreeing to share more about your project and a little bit more about your
Yeah.
background. So, taking a step back, I'd love to know what drew you to ALD research. Was there a moment or experience that made this feel urgent to you?
Yeah, it's actually been like a very peculiar and extremely gradual process for me. I did my undergrad in computer science and math, but just as I was graduating my undergrad, my dad was diagnosed with ALD, with AMN in particular, and I wanted to make a difference in the disease. So, like thinking about the options, the opportunities I had to be a professional computer scientist, a software engineer, they didn't feel as important as being able to help my dad and help patients. And so I had this like real sort of shift in orientation in my outlook at the world as right after finishing my undergrad. And that led me ultimately into neurodegeneration research. And at the time, the only position I could find was working on ALS. ALS is a disease where we know even less than we know about ALD. And so a data scientist, someone with machine learning and AI tools, there was a case to be made that I could contribute there. But once I finally got into the PhD program at MIT in computational biology, I had the opportunity to work on ALD and ultimately was talked out of it. And the reason there was that there were some clinical trials in the pipeline that seemed promising. And I was told, maybe think about, something broader, something bigger picture. And so I spent all of my PhD working on tools for other neurodegenerative diseases. Like how would we address neurodegeneration writ large? And it was only as I was finishing my PhD at MIT that the clinical trial that we'd been expecting to work read out as unsafe for patients. And so that was really the moment where I was like, I've been wanting to contribute to this disease for a long time, and I'm tired of waiting for someone else to find the cure. So I'm going to do it.
Yeah, well, we are so lucky that you decided to focus on our disease. And I'm so sorry you were also talked out of it. We could have had
Yeah,
you working on this the whole time.
yeah,
But thanks for sharing your background and also I think it's really I mean not great knowing that you have somebody with ALD, but it's definitely feels meaningful that you're also working on this because you have someone that has this and so there's a huge impact and you wanting to make an impact on somebody that also is very close to you. That definitely must mean a lot, right?
I think it sculpts my viewpoint in several ways. I think it means that any drug that I make that I think is a cure for ALD needs to be safe enough that I would be ready to put it into a person that I hold very dear. And it
Mm.
also means that I am not satisfied doing any science that isn't really specifically going to make a difference for patients. I think there's a lot of science that we can do about ALD to understand the brain better, to understand lipids better. And that basic science is essential for us to like understand the world and maybe understand other diseases. And ALD can be a sort of like opening point to study all those topics, but that's really not the kind of science that I'm interested in. I'm really focused on therapeutics, on cures.
That's great. Let's talk more about your research project. So, not everybody who listens in is going to have a very technical or scientific background. In plain language, what is this research project about? What questions are you trying to answer? And what's the biggest obstacle that your work is trying to overcome?
Basically, if you're going to build a cure for ALD, you have, broadly speaking, four options. One option is a pill that manages symptoms perfectly. And there are people working on this. It's very hard. No one's succeeding yet. A second option is that you can do a bone marrow transplant. And this is where you physically take cells that have the correct ABCD1 and you put them inside a person. And that is kind of dangerous. The reason is you need to get rid of a person's existing immune system. So that's kind of toxic and kind of like a devil's bargain. The other two approaches are kinds of gene therapy, where you're sort of correcting the mutation without replacing cells. One is a typical gene therapy, and this is about like taking a replacement copy of the gene and putting it inside a person. And then the fourth approach is genome editing, where you find the broken copy inside a person and you fix it. So I'm in that first of those two approaches. My project is about a safe way to put a correct copy of ABCD1 inside every cell in a person so that they have a correct copy and that cures the disease.
Great. Can you speak to the biggest obstacle your work is trying to overcome? Can you share more about a blood brain barrier? I think that
Yeah,
that proves to be a challenge for some of these therapies, right? So maybe talking a little bit about that would be
Yeah.
helpful.
So basically, we're trying to put a correct copy of ABCD1 into all of your cells. Now, a human has like 84 trillion cells, and several of those, matter for the disease. So the way to think about it is, suppose you needed to precisely deliver like 84 trillion Amazon packages, like exactly at the right doorsteps in a person's body. And in particular, the brain is kind of like a fortress. So it doesn't want you to be delivering Amazon packages. And so the technologies that we're taking advantage of are ones that allow us to make those deliveries of this correct ABCD1 to the brain. The blood-brain barrier is the name of this sort of fortress that the brain holds to protect itself from anything that might be in your blood that might be unsafe. But our ability to actually persuade the brain, the blood-brain barrier, that this is a therapy and cross over is the innovation that unlocks this potential cure.
And the other thing that you mentioned too was it's in the title of your project, which is safer gene therapy. Can you talk to more about, I mean, I think that's one of the questions we're trying to answer is can we cross the blood brain barrier, but also can we do it safely? So can you touch on a little bit about what you mean?
Yeah, that's I'd say the hardest thing to do here. These therapies where you're delivering, a gene, they're extremely complicated and they kind of stress your body out. And a body that's already suffering from adrenoleukodystrophy, getting further stressed out can lead to dire consequences. And so the challenge here is, can you engineer every part of the therapy to be innocuous enough that you deliver a cure without side effects? And that's really where like all of my work is going into, in taking every way that this cure could also be harmful and finding an engineering solution to it.
Thank you for sharing that. Uh, when you think about this project and what success could look like, you've already kind of mentioned a little bit, but just wanted to really pull it out and clarify what does success look like as it relates to this project. So if this research were to go the way that you had hoped, what changes do you hope to see for how ALD is treated or stopped?
Yeah, so there are, like I mentioned, these sort of like four different categories of approaches to cure ALD, and we're taking one of them. And as far as I know, we might be the only people really like going for that. And it's appealing because it's a one injection cure. So it's the idea is like you would get one single injection, and from that, the disease would go away. As we think about deploying this, we're going to deploy it first in patients who have early lesions. And so the idea there is we'd be able to halt the disease. And if we can show that it's successful there, then the stretch goal that we have is we want to be able to deliver this therapy as soon as a patient is diagnosed with newborn screening. So you can imagine, a 3 to 6 month old getting an injection that protects them for their life. And effectively the disease is sort of gone. That's really what we're aiming for, and realistically, I want to stress this, like it's a very realistic outcome. We just need to make sure that we have it fully safe and fully effective, and that's what we're working on.
Yeah. So many families, I think, are looking for something like this, especially when they get that newborn screening diagnosis and that call, that something popped up on their newborn screening test. And I think that's would be such a relief for so many families. So, on that note, if you could sit across from a patient who just got their child's diagnosis, what would you want them to know about where this research is headed and how it might impact their family?
This is for both you and I, Terry. It's personal. I need to give kind of like direct and tough information for this because I want to be honest. The first thing that I would say is that it's important to temper your expectations. This is a disease that is difficult. It's a brain disease. It's complicated, and my cure may not work. Other people's cures that they're going after may also not work. It's important to be ready for things not working and to be prepared to face the challenge that's thrown at you. I would say it's really important to be your own advocate. There is, unfortunately, no one has a solution to this disease, and so no one will come and rescue you. And so you have the opportunity and really the mandate of becoming a little bit of an expert in this disease at this point in history. And no one will be able to better help you navigate this disease because there's no cure right now than you. And so I would really encourage you to inform yourself about this disease and figure out what works for you and really take your own health into your own hands. And that's right now in 2026. I said already it's important to learn the science. The therapies that I'm building, they're very complicated, right? They are risky. Skysona, the cell therapy where you actually replace the cells, was hailed as a cure, but then it caused cancer in kids as like a side effect later. And being able to understand just the beginnings of the science in order to be able to make an informed decisions as new therapies roll out is going to be really important. I would really encourage you. The science isn't super complicated at a high level. Attend ALD Connect, get in touch with the community, and begin to inform yourself a little bit about what the disease is and what the different therapeutics are. I would say that this community, in as much as I've been part of it, not a patient myself, but related to one, is an incredibly resilient and generous community. And I would tell you to go find folks and find fellowship in this community. People will do extraordinary things for you. And you don't have to be alone in this disease at all because we care about each other. Maybe last thing I'd say is that hope is a verb. I really like that expression.
Mhm.
We are hoping for a cure together, and that means a lot of work. That means taking care of each other, and that means thinking critically about the different opportunities we have, and really taking each day as like this steady sort of like battle that we're taking, this war that we're sort of like taking to this disease. We will win. It's really just a matter of when. It's a matter of whether my attempt is going to be successful or someone else's in a couple years. If everything goes well, there will be a cure for all ALD patients, mine, in 2031. That's already a ways out if everything goes perfectly for me. But the odds of that, I think they're about 50%, but who am
Mhm.
I?
Yeah.
So I would say that like you need to hold on to hope tightly, and really sort of like operationalize hope in your family, in your community, and this community, because we will find a cure. It's just it's going to take like a steady. It's going to take endurance. I mean, that's
Yeah.
what I would say.
Endurance. I feel like I've met a lot of ALD families, and I'd have to say that probably is something that a lot of people do have in this community is endurance, resilience, and a lot of hope, which can go a long way. And you've mentioned a little bit already about where you think the research is headed, but in that conversation when in talking to families, is there anything that you want them to know specifically about your research and where it's going and why they should have hope about your research specifically?
The research that I'm doing relies on a sort of an enormous. We're standing on the shoulders of giants, and this particular innovation that was made recently that allows us to get genes into the brain much more safely and much more effectively, which is just a discovery that was made in the past 2 years, I think will be a revolution for all diseases of the brain. And I feel so fortunate to be here, to be one of the first people having access to this technology and turning it into a drug for ALD. ALD is like, almost first in line to be using this technology. And so I'm extremely hopeful and wouldn't be, like working as hard as I am all like Lynn on this project if I didn't think that we're actually quite close this time around. But I want to stress that that has been said before in this community. And so I need to remind folks, particularly as this work is still in its earlier stages. We haven't, we're not in clinical trials yet, that this will be a process and this project may not work, but one of them will.
Yeah, that's great. Well, thank you for setting the expectations. And I love that 2031 date. Now that you said it, that's going to be in my head.
Yep. Yep.
So let's talk about like our partnership. What brought you to Cure ALD as a funding partner, and what made you want to pursue this work with our support?
Well, first of all, Terry, I'm extremely fortunate that you picked this project and that you're supporting me, and I'm really grateful. There are two reasons that I especially feel fortunate to be working with you, Terry. First is our shared commitment to cures. I think that there has been a lot of research in ALD that has set the stage for this time to be a ripe one to go after kind of like the last in the process to try to build cures. And I think that there's this allure to continue trying to understand the disease better and in different ways and from different angles that I think is not the best way for us to spend our time right now in 2026. And so I think that our shared commitment in the name of your philanthropy and in my project to actually finding a cure, a safe and effective cure, is a reason that I'm really glad we're partnering. And the second is that I think that you are bringing more awareness to this disease to not only families who are affected by this disease who are a little bit less engaged in the community, but also their communities. And that's something that I really appreciate about you, Terry. I really appreciate that we are starting a small, maybe medium-sized movement here, and I'm really glad to be on board.
Thanks, Alex. I think the words collective action really was something that when we built our business plan was something that I was pretty passionate about because I felt like that needed to be, we needed a movement to be able to really build the awareness and the urgency. So that's where that I thanks for bringing that up because that really was something that I wanted to when we built Cure ALD. The next question is for those who want to see this research move forward, how can they support you, this research study, and what does that support make possible?
So experiments are expensive. Mice are expensive. Making new therapeutics is expensive. Each sort of key experiment, each cornerstone experiment that we do towards this drug costs about as much as like a nice car, like a medium nice car, just to give you like a frame of reference. And so in as much as you're able to support the research directly by contributions, that's extremely helpful. I think that we're like 3, maybe 4 experiments away from being able to launch the clinical side of things where we try to test this in people. And so that's like 3 to 4 nice cars away. I don't want to stop there though, because I really want to engage the community more. And so in as much as you're able to tell me your story as a patient, in as much as you're able to bring others to the table, that's a way that you're able to support this project, this science, and the mission more generally. We want to hear from you. We want to hear your stories. We want to work on this together.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's one thing that we always try to remind people too is there's an opportunity to do this together and that we all play a part. I think, let scientists do the science. And then what families can do is to continue to raise awareness and tell our stories and make sure that the stories are um, really connecting to the why the work is so important. What happens to this research if funding falls short? What's at stake?
Yeah. I This is a question that I have a harder time answering. If this research doesn't get done, it sets back the timeline for a cure for ALD using this approach by at least several years. I think that if I'm right, that this innovation that I'm describing, which allows you to put genes in brains effectively and safely, is curative for other diseases, which are all sort of racing to use this technology as well, there will be a succession of cures to rare neurodegenerative and neuro diseases in the coming years that will make it obvious that ALD is a candidate. And someone at some point will cure ALD using this technology if that technology really delivers on its promise, which it probably will. I am really fortunate to have relationships with these people and am putting ALD very early in line to be a beneficiary of this new technology and to build a cure on top of it. If this research falls short, it may take 3, 4, 5, 6 years before someone else picks it up.
So you think it's inevitable that someone's going to figure this out with this technology? It's just a matter of time at this point, matter of time and money, essentially.
Yeah. I think that both of those actually, importantly, like there are very few people who are sitting where I'm sitting, where I had access to this technology. Like I was one of the first people in the world to have access to it, and I had a very strong reason to want to use it. And it will be harder for the next person to get access to this technology and to bring it to ALD.
Can you talk more about, being part of the Wyss Institute and the system that you're a part of? Because I feel like that is important to know for people to know that where you're doing this research and the resources and support that you have that's associated with the Wyss Institute actually does help move things, I think, even faster than they would in other places.
Yeah, so with the help of a philanthropic gift, Harvard set up the Wyss Institute to take innovative technologies that might matter for human health and move them towards company formation and cures much more quickly. And so the Wyss Institute is Harvard's way of launching academic projects into real translational impact. And so it was very deliberate for me to want to work here with George Church, who's one of the legends in biotechnology and has started many very successful companies in the past. And so when I decided to work on ALD, I very specifically chose I need to work at the Wyss Institute where there is all of this infrastructure for supporting getting this not just working in the lab, but then very much out of the lab and into the world. And with George Church at my back, I feel like very confident that we're going to have at least the opportunity to try this at a real scale, not just have it be a sort of science project, but actually sort of like move it to the clinic.
Yes. And I think that's the most important thing that I want to point out here is I think that patients should know that it's not just a science project that you're working on. There is an ultimate goal of making sure that this does go to clinical trials, that this does get into patients, and you're backed by a system and mentors that can very much help you get there faster and efficiently and effectively, right? Okay. The last question. I know how much this means to you, but I think it'd be really great to end with this last question, which is, what would it mean to you personally if this project leads somewhere meaningful?
I had the unfortunate experience that all of us have had at some point of learning that disease is possible, that people are finite and you can lose them. Um, and in particular, in a way that is actually addressable in the context of this disease. Um, I don't think that we should need to settle for adrenoleukodystrophy being part of any person's experience of life. And I really think that we have the opportunity to end ALD, to essentially just like make it a historical, put it into history. I I can't put into words how important this is to me and how kind of excited I am, honestly, to get to take what I think is the best swing at this disease right now.
Alex, thank you so much. I love that you're leaving us on such a positive and inspirational note. Hearing you say those words is amazing. And we are so grateful. The ALD community is so grateful to have you taking this huge swing for us. And we are going to be rooting for you and supporting you and wishing you the best of luck with this project. And we can't wait to see where it goes and we can't wait to see the results. So, yeah, thank you so, so much.
Thanks, Terry. Yeah, it means a lot to be on this journey with you.